Well, welcome, and thank you for coming today, both here in St. Paul and in the district offices. I'm Charlie Zelli, Commissioner of the Department of Transportation. It's my great honor to kick off this construction announcements. It's a beautiful day in Minnesota. My gosh, spring has surely happened. A year ago, I think we were in the dead of winter, and so I'm pleased to say that the construction projects, many of them are up and running, and this great weather has given us a head start on the season. And usually, when weather is good, it portends for a good construction season, and I'm thrilled that we're on our way. A lot of what we're doing and announcing for this year is going to be, the bulk of it is really about replacing the worn parts of the system, the parts of that are deteriorating. There is going to be some continuing expansion work, which I'll get to in a minute. But most importantly, you should know we are doing this really pretty strong construction program to keep our roadways and our bridges and our systems safe and to maintain a reliable system throughout the state. This year, we'll be working on 290 projects valued at about $1 billion. Now, this list is a combination of some of our major projects, such as pavement work, some minor projects, landscaping, drainage system repairs, railroad crossing upgrades. These seem small, but they collectively are as critically important as some of our major work. There's a couple of reasons why this is important for the state of Minnesota, not least of which is the fact that construction work is incredibly valuable for supporting jobs. There's literally thousands of jobs that will be actively in place this summer. Also, as we and I continually say, transportation isn't doing this for itself. It is the backbone of our economy and our quality of life. I speak a lot about the ongoing degradation of the existing system. It is challenged. It continues to be challenged. And this series of projects are going to help hold back some of that deterioration. We have, of course, every year a new crop of potholes. This year, not as bad as last year, but they're there. They're still coming out, and they need to be immediately addressed. Of course, those are patchwork projects. We want to get down toward the real solution, which is pavement reconstruction, and we have some of those projects as well. I'm thrilled that we're continuing our Corridors of Commerce program. We'll actually be starting on 5 of the Corridors of Commerce projects that we had previously announced. Highway 610 is a really good example of that. It is underway, and we will see great progress on that. We'll also see work on 94. These projects are not there just because it's a nice amenity. That really does address the critical bottleneck areas that are the major causes of congestion. We hear about that frequently, and it's not just from commuters or citizens driving individual cars. These are major freight corridors, so the idea of actually keeping our economy moving allows for freight to move more smoothly and more safely. Again, the Corridors of Commerce was funded by bonding and by savings, but it really is intended to be the down payment on what can be achieved if we have adequate funding going forward. There's a chart in your packet which really shows the bar charts of, looks like this, of kind of where we are in the past years and what we'd expect in the future. It seems like the third year I've come and described this billion-dollar program that we've done. I always like to say it's like building a Viking stadium every year, and then next year. The problem is now, next year, and the years after, we will see a downturn in the amount of projects, not because there's a lack of need, but because there's a lack of sustainable funding. We know that in the long run, the deterioration on our roadways is continuing. This billion-dollar investment does not get us caught up. In fact, it just helps stem the tide of deterioration. The needs are significant going forward. And we would think that actually, even without additional funding, the condition of our payments and our bridges are getting worse. This is why, because we live in a very tough climate, because the costs of construction gradually go up over time. And as you know, with age, if we don't do the appropriate reconstruction, then the result is more potholes, which is really like the visible part of an iceberg. The underneath part is really becoming our biggest problem. It's really gratifying that transportation is one of the big subjects at the legislature here in St. Paul this year. We all seem to be talking about it, and there are some number of significant proposals for funding from all sides of the Capitol. I'm thrilled that the governor's proposal is about long-term funding, not a one-year funding. And when you think about the work we're doing this year, it took years of planning and thought and engineering to get to the point of actually deploying this $1 billion of projects. This is why the governor's proposal is about sustained, dedicated funds, ones that we can count on in the future years, so that we can start planning and deploying our workforce toward developing these projects to stem the tide of deterioration and to make some improvement in the next 10 years, which is really the appropriate outlook. It is a statewide issue, and I think what is also wonderful is I think everybody's agreeing on the need. We're not looking at a piecemeal approach, but much more about how these systems work together and how we do them over, again, many periods of time. We at MnDOT, when we think about funding, are willing to contribute to that effort. I want to just reiterate that we are doing our part by looking for every efficiency and effective deployment of capital and operations resources as we can. We have committed 15% of any new revenue that would be coming to the agency to be funded by our own efficiencies. In fact, some of the projects we look at today wouldn't have been possible had we not found resources from our project savings and have been able to redeploy them into some of these additional capacity projects at the corridors of commerce. We think that the prospects without funding look grim. It's not just the bar charts. If we can show you the bar chart of what happens to our underlying deterioration, it would look even worse. Before I finish, I do have to kind of say that construction season is disruptive. It is also many times dangerous. We really ask the traveling public and motorists to be respectful of work zones in particular. We know that there are very courageous people working in those areas, and we do all we can to protect their safety, but we know it comes down to fundamental individual behaviors, so please be thoughtful of construction workers during this period. Thank you so much, and now it's my honor to introduce our chief engineer who really knows how these projects work, Sue Mulvihill. Sue?
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. I am Sue Mulvihill. I'm the Deputy Commissioner and Chief Engineer for the department, and my responsibilities here include the planning, the project delivery, the design, the construction, and then the maintenance and operations of the transportation system that you see out there today and that we're delivering in the next few years. In general, projects are selected not in a vacuum. They are selected by looking at the infrastructure itself. What condition is the asset in? Is the pavement got a lot of potholes in it? Does there needs to be some improvement to the bridge or whatever it is? We also look at traffic volumes, how much trucks, how much cars, and how much use the actual system is getting in that area. We look at safety. Are there crashes? Are there issues that we could potentially resolve if we do some sort of a project in a specific area on our transportation system? We actually review how long it's been since the project was done in any specific area, and that really helps us look at what's the return on the investment at that particular time on that particular piece of infrastructure that we're looking for. We also look at the cost. We try to estimate a cost, and that's really early on when we're talking about how we're selecting projects. It's a pretty wide estimate at that point. But we want to determine if now is the right time to invest funds in any particular piece of infrastructure, because we are interested in the life cycle of the asset and making sure that we maintain it as long as possible. We involve a lot of folks in our decisions about projects. Different metropolitan planning organizations are involved in the discussion on how we select projects across the state. In the metro area here, it's the Metropolitan Council. They help us with planning, and we are part of their efforts as well, so they help us a lot with different kinds of projects here that we do in the metro area. In addition, local agencies, cities, counties, area transportation partnerships across the state assist us in selecting projects. And each year we select probably 250 different projects that go into the hopper to become the next year's following on to our state transportation improvement program. Costs that we develop through construction. Today we're just talking about the actual construction cost of those projects, but there are many other things that go into developing and delivering a project, like scoping, design, environmental reviews, things like that. So there are a lot of additional pieces that go to help us deliver a project. We may have to purchase right-of-way. In the case of any ADA improvements, we purchase a lot of little pieces of right-of-way for different kinds of projects. And really, again, just to remind you, today we're just talking about the pure construction cost of the projects that we're looking at for our 2015 construction season. MnDOT is responsible for 30,000 lane miles of roadway. We actually have 12,000 miles of trunk highway, but the lane miles, if you count individual lanes, is over 30,000 miles. We have more than 4,000 bridges on our state system, and we maintain and inspect all of those bridges, some of them each year, some of them every other year. Last year on our system, just on the MnDOT system, motorists drove hundreds of millions of miles. So our pavements and our bridges and our infrastructure takes a lot of use, and we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we maintain it and take care of it properly. Our construction program really is focused on preserving and maintaining the system that we have. MnDOT, to replace our system, is about $75 billion. That's all of our assets. We will do some expansion projects. You'll probably drove through one on the way up here on 35E. We're putting in a min-pass lane there. That's a congestion mitigation project to manage, and it's some expansion there. There are some enhancement projects. The Lafayette Bridge is an enhancement project. But actually most of our work is due to replacing pavements that need to be replaced, bridges that need to be rehabbed or reconstructed, and that's really what we're working on. And we really want to keep our infrastructure in sound working condition for all motorists and users. I want to take a few minutes to really respect and support what the commissioner said at the end of his presentation. We need all people to drive safely in work zones, not just work zones, but all over the system. MnDOT is committed towards zero deaths. We've reduced fatalities in our state by about 300 since I was a traffic engineer in the late 80s, and we're about at 350 fatalities, and we're striving to go lower than that. So we really want people to help us eliminate crashes and fatalities on the system. Last week was the National Work Zone Safety Awareness Week across the country, so this is an issue not only in Minnesota but all across the nation. We do really work hard to operate, maintain, and build a safe, efficient system, and we do a lot of things that try to help us with that. Cable median barrier, installing interchanges, putting in different intersections across the state, rumble strips, all of those things are designed to actually make the system as safe and as user-friendly as possible. The one thing that we can't do is engineer the behavior of the drivers behind the wheel. And we really, really want folks to pay attention to what they're doing, no matter where they are on our system, but specifically in work zones. We need them to help us because we want all of our workers and our construction partners to go home safe every day, and we want all of our motorists to be able to get where they're going without incident. You might see some billboards out around the state. I know for a fact there's one on 94 going towards St. Cloud. It says, "Cones, no phones." We'd really appreciate if people would put down their phone when they're driving through a work zone, pay attention to the speed limits, watch for the workers, watch for these orange cones here that are all out all over the place. And we truly appreciate that effort on the part of the motorists and all of you. We appreciate the fact that you're all here today to help us spread the word and get people to drive safely, especially in the work zone area for this coming construction season, which I'm sure will be very challenging for all kinds of folks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Nielsen from our State Patrol to give you some facts there. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Tiffany Nielsen, Public Information Officer for the Minnesota State Patrol, and thanks for inviting me to be here today because the partnership between State Patrol and MnDOT in getting the work done that needs to get done and doing it safely is critical. So here we are again. This is one of the favorite times of year for state troopers. We get to be out enforcing traffic at crash scenes without our long underwear and our winter coats, and we're not timing on our stopwatch 30 seconds in sub-zero temperatures to change tires. But what it becomes for MnDOT is a very dangerous time of year. They've got a huge number of employees, contractors, and MnDOT employees out on the roadways doing the road work that is critical to our infrastructure and immensely beneficial to all of us here in Minnesota. The risks of working on an active roadway are extremely high. Although we can be pleased we've seen a reduction in DWIs in our state, we're seeing an increase in distracted driving incidents and crashes and fatalities. The orange cones that you see here, you can't miss them, but they're not a force field and they're not an invisible shield to protect these workers that are on the side of the road. The solution for this lies in education, enforcement, and every driver making a personal decision to be cognizant and respectful of the workers when they are driving in the work zones. One thing I've noticed over the years is drivers don't seem to notice when speed limits reduce. However, they always notice when the speed limit goes up. So I say it takes about 2 miles to slow down for a speed change, but 0.2 seconds to increase to the new speed change. And in construction zones is where we're seeing that speed reduction. Drivers should not wait till they're in the zone to reduce their speed, but anticipate they're approaching a construction zone and reduce their speed ahead of time. This is going to allow them to be in the zone at a safe speed for them and the workers. I'm glad we're seeing stiffer penalties for people who don't respect the demands and the unsafe conditions of the work zone employees. These men and women out there are husbands, wives, parents, and children, and they all deserve a safe working environment to go home safely to their families at the end of their shift. We all expect that they will. With the start of the construction season, I hope and urge all drivers to be respectful and cognizant that these work zones are someone's office. They are someone's ability to provide for their family, and they're someone's loved ones who go to work every day to maintain and improve our roads, which benefits all of us. I hope for a safe season for MnDOT and the contracted employees that are going to be on our roadways, and I hope we see no fatal crashes in a construction work zone in 2015. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we would like to see if there are any media questions of the first three presenters. But before we do that, I had a couple of media inquiries about Highway 100 in St. Louis Park. If you want to address that issue, we've got some folks here from the Metro District who are able to talk about it, and we'll set something up after the news conference is over. So, any questions for the commissioners or Lieutenant Nielsen? Catherine.
Commissioner Zelli, you spoke earlier about the need for long-term funding for transportation. Republicans in the House argue that their plan is exactly that, long-term funding. Do you see anything in their proposal that you think is workable or doable?
Well, thank you. I think it is great that the House has, in their proposal, has recognized that there's a real need, and there needs to be a 10-year perspective. You know, we could argue about whether it's enough. I mean, it's less amount of money for the system than the governor's or the Senate's proposal. But I think it is very gratifying that there's now a recognition that it's a substantial amount, that we need to do something, that it'll cost more to wait, and that it is a 10-year perspective. I think our concern is that it can only be really committed for a 2-year period. So it is the challenge of having general fund dollars means that it is not constitutionally dedicated. And the constitutionally dedicated funds really assures this department and all counties and municipalities that they can plan for the funding going forward. With general fund dollars, we have seen in the past, whereas those good intentions have been pulled back by future legislators when you have periods of a deficit or other priorities, and usually education and healthcare seems to trump transportation, and we know that in the past that has happened when the motor vehicle sales tax was not dedicated and it was going toward the general fund. It was pulled back to other needs. In fact, the business community, and I was part of that, worked hard with a campaign to change the Constitution to dedicate motor vehicle sales tax to the trunk highway fund. Now it is. So I think it was important then, it is still important now that there be constitutionally dedicated sustainable funding, and that has been part of both the Senate and the governor's program, is to have it part of the trunk highway fund and not just the general fund, because, you know, other than the first 2 years, we really don't know.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, Greater Minnesota, it's time for the districts to drop off and talk with their local media about their program. In the meantime, here in St. Paul, we're going to have Tom O'Keefe from the Metro District come up and speak about the Metro District program.
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks to the media for being here. We know that getting the word out helps our motorists prepare, and a better prepared motorist is more likely to make sound decisions when they're driving our roads. It's a really busy year coming at us. That's compounded by the short construction season we had last year. We have more projects carrying over than we had otherwise planned to, so that's going to make for more impacts, especially early in this season. I'm going to review projects with major traffic impacts. Many of our projects we're able to do at night and weekends, and so they have minimal impacts. So these will tend to be the bigger projects too that I review. Starting in the east, the St. Croix crossing construction continues. Planned opening is 2016. This year there won't be much in the way of highway traffic impacts or local road traffic impacts, but there will be impacts on the river. Boating will be restricted at times for beam setting and other things. Staying on the east, the Lafayette Bridge, Highway 52 over the Mississippi River will wrap up this year. That's a nice improvement, as Sue said, an enhancement to travel in that area. A project, a more preservation type project that we're starting this year that'll have major impacts is the Highway 5 or West 7th Bridge over the Mississippi River at Fort Snelling. So that bridge will be redecked. Starting April 12th, project there or traffic there will be restricted to one lane in each direction until September. On Highway 13 in MnDOT Heights, we'll have a closure from mid-June to late August. That's for drainage and pavement work, again, more preservation work. Another very big project is on Snelling Avenue in the city of St. Paul, for the most part, north of I-94. The bridge carrying Snelling over 94 will close for redecking in May. It'll have a lock date of reopening that whole stretch of Snelling on August 14th, and time for the state fair. That's very much incentivized opening date. This project will also include much sidewalk work and repaving. It's coordinated with a Met Transit project that puts BRT, bus rapid transit facilities in place. So it's an exciting project for the future of travel along Snelling Avenue. As Sue mentioned, 35E north of downtown St. Paul, work continues there. That's reconstruction, and it will add a min-pass lane. Through this summer, the basic minimum configuration there is 3 lanes northbound and 2 lanes southbound. Over next winter, it will go back to 3 lanes in each direction. Completion of that project will be in 2016. A new project on 35E is north of 694 in the Vadnais Heights area. It starts this year. This includes a replacement of the bridges carrying 35E over Goose Lake Road. We'll keep 2 lanes open in each direction, but it will slow and delay traffic. When that project and a companion project are completed next year, that will extend the Min-Pass lane up into that Highway 96 area. So moving west on 35W in the New Brighton area, we're doing a couple bridge replacements. One is County Road F at Mounds View High School over 35W, and the other is Highway 96 just north of 694 over 35W. For those projects, there will be weekend closures for demolition and then overnight closures for setting beams. The commissioner mentioned the Quarters of Commerce project on Highway 610, which will complete the connection to I-94. That work really begins in earnest this year. There will be little in the way of traffic impacts. Commissioner also mentioned briefly a project on I-94 in the Rogers area. This is being built by our Central Minnesota District. It adds a lane in each direction from 101 to Highway 41 just over the Crow River. That one will have significant traffic impacts. Last year we started a project on 494 between 55 and 94 in Maple Grove. That adds the 3rd lane in each direction. This year we're using a movable barrier which will allow us to have 2 lanes in the peak direction, southbound in the morning and northbound in the evening, and 1 lane in the off-peak direction. That's the same technology we used on 494 in Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina a couple years ago. So, the flow on 494 is very peak oriented, so it's a really good application for that movable barrier. We've started the project on Highway 100 in St. Louis Park. Knocked down the Minnetonka Boulevard Bridge last weekend, and so it's already reduced to 2 lanes in each direction. We'll get it back to 3 lanes in each direction over the winter. This project replaces 2 Depression-era bridges, Minnetonka Boulevard and Highway 7, and that's the 1930s Depression for the youngsters out there. On I-94, a project that's already been reported on in the media, and thank you for that. Getting the word out is really important. Refreshes the pavement between Highway 100 and downtown. This project will put all westbound traffic into the 2 Min-Pass lanes that are separated by barrier from June 19th to June 30th. And then the eastbound lanes will be put into those lanes from July 10th to the 23rd. Those are big impacts to travel in that area. There will also be access restrictions to and from the Basilica area to 394 from June to September for bridge work. In the Jordan area on 169, that will be restricted to 1 lane in each direction for bridge, median barrier, and pavement work from May through the end of October. Finally, on Highway 5 in Waconia, we'll have the road closed to through traffic from June 8th to the end of August. Finally, another message on work zone safety. We've had 12 people die in state highway work zones over the past 2 years. 7 of those have come at the end of the queue where traffic slows down approaching the work area. We are putting more stop-to-head signs, traffic stop-to-head with flashing lights out there, but for those signs to do your job, you have to be paying attention. I saw an email yesterday that said the #1 cause of teenage death now is texting while driving. Those are exactly the areas where people need to be paying attention. This same email said that half of adults under the age of 35 admit to reading and writing texts while driving. So to reinforce the message, please put your phones down. Thank you for coming and getting the word out. I think we're,
See if are there any questions, and if you get asked a question, please repeat.
okay, thanks. Any questions?
The 494 Plymouth Maple Grove project that you mentioned, you said, tell me what you said again about the barrier. It sounded like that's something temporary, is that right, before the additional lane? Could you explain that a little?
Sure, I'm glad you asked. So it's a barrier that we can move, so we'll have 3 lanes of traffic, and we can move the barrier between the peak hours so that in the morning you'll have 2 lanes southbound, 1 lane northbound. And then we move the barrier in the afternoon, you have 2 lanes northbound and 1 lane southbound. There's a big machine that drives concrete barriers, big machine that drives along the road and, you know, jogs the barrier over.
And that's just to kind of mitigate the problem right now as you add the additional lane, is that right?
Yeah, that's to help manage traffic during construction.
And so does that mean there's just 1 lane in each direction while these barriers are being moved, or?
That'd be correct. Yeah, and it's relatively quick. I forget the speed that they go,
It's pretty fast.
8 miles an hour maybe.
10 miles an hour.
They're deployed on a permanent basis in a number of cities like Boston as well, but this is temporary for us.
We've got YouTube videos of it in operation that I think we could probably make sure are available.
One of my worthy competitors did a nice analysis a month or 2 ago about 10 dangerous spots in the immediate metro. One of them was that Snelling Avenue Bridge you're going to resurface. Both the north and Snelling travel, there were safety issues there. Is this just a resurface, or are we going to have any safety issues there?
There are certainly safety features to it. You know, it's a heavily used pedestrian corridor, and with the bus rapid transit system coming, we're going to make sure that pedestrians are safer. We also are reconstructing interchanges, and safety is always something that we look at.
Are any of the side streets, like right up that Snelling and 94 exit, are they going to be blocked off, so it's just an exit ramp from the freeway, or are those going to be maintained?
Eric Embacher is the construction manager for that project. Did you hear the question? That's right, I haven't been repeating the question. So the question was, will side streets connecting with Snelling in that area be blocked off during construction? They capture it?
Generally, they'll be open. We do allow some closures as we're working within those intersections for some pipe work and ADE work and stuff like that. But then consecutive cross streets around that one is supposed to be open, so it would be continuous.
One of the unique things we're doing in that project is we're limiting the contractor to, I think it's 2-week periods, to have any particular block with significant traffic restrictions to help, you know, the businesses make it through construction. Any other questions?
I think the meeting's over.
Not too bad, thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. All of the information from this will be available on our website. It's probably been emailed to you folks already. So if you have any questions, I'll give me a shout later today. Thank you. You still on, Cart?